Welcome back, my friends, to the Josephine Show. We're going to be taking a look at Al Alberts and listening to him and myself on the Joe Franklin Show back in August and October of 1987. Al passed away November 27th of 2009, and his request was to be buried at sea. He had been in the Navy for 38 months, and the sea becomes his resting place. His request was to be buried at sea, and it's sort of sad as Josephine and I look at the videos of the Four Aces and all these memories to think that he's no longer with us, but he lives on through our television and through our videos and DVDs. 4 parts, Four Aces, 4 parts of Al Alberts were featured on the Joe Franklin Show. I put it together August and October of 1987. I brought Al Alberts up from North Cape May, New Jersey, and we did 4 segments on the Joe Franklin Show. And Joe Franklin had said to me that was the first time any artist was ever saluted 4 times in 2 months on his show. So I'm part of Joe Franklin history for having Al Alberts on the show 4 separate times in August and October of 1987. 4-part salute, which is pretty good as far as my feelings are concerned, because it's a very rewarding experience to have honored Al Alberts and film clips of the Four Aces, which you've seen earlier in the Josephine Show, but we highlight them again. So you're going to be taking a look right now at Al Alberts and myself and Joe Franklin from 1987 through the magic of video. We have memories of Al talking about his career, and as you're watching this, and as you've watched everything on the Josephine Show, on the air show, bear in mind that Al is no longer with us, but Dave Mahoney, Sod Vaccaro, and of course our dear friend Lou Silvestri, the fabulous bass singer, is still with us. And speaking of bass singers, this dog is I'm catching a dog allergy. I'm catching your allergy. All right, let's take a look at the Joe Franklin Show. That's Josephine over there. Hello, Josephine. Your Gypsy Rose Pussycat is ready to watch the Joe Franklin Show, and bear in mind that Al is not with us anymore, so it's with bittersweet memories that we watch the screen right now.
This is the longest running talk or variety show, I think, in the whole history of the world. Now in our 35th year, and we're not going to quit until we get it exactly right. And today's going to be one of the rightest programs ever, because we've got in person some spectacular people, starting with Al Alberts of the Four Aces. And he is one of the ace. He is the ace of the Four Aces. He's one of the aces of the musical world, and some other fantastically interesting guests. I got the highest form of public service today, little thing on how to maybe cut down on highway disasters by eliminating the drinking part of being behind the wheel. I think it's incredibly important and serious and tragic that it's getting worse and worse. We're going to give you a new art form today known as, what's the magic word? Holography. And guess, it's kind of a blending, and guess who they've holographed? Yours truly. It's going to be kind of a TV first, and many more surprises. We are in kind of a memory lane mood. This is our 35th anniversary, as I mentioned, and now and then we get in that kind of a sentimental frame of mind, and we dig into the grab bag. I have no idea whose pictures I'm about. We just dug into a grab bag of maybe 100,000 photographs, and I've just decided to show you a few of the people. They get ready for what I think is going to be a most... As a matter of fact, Al Alberts is such an important man, such a good friend of mine. I want to try to hold Al over today for the second show tomorrow. Al Alberts today and tomorrow, and the big party is only just beginning. As they say in the media, stay tuned. Be right back. I'm going to start by saying that opposite me is you, and additionally opposite me is a young man who is a legend in the music industry. This man in the music field has lived and continues to live a most productive and busy and exciting and marvelous life. And his name is Al Alberts. And I was wondering, Mr. Alberts, we'll pretend we're at a big banquet on a big dais, and your official biographer named Walter Gollender, who organized today's little get-together, part 1 today and part 2 tomorrow, is about to introduce you to a few... Well, I read in the paper that 70 million people watch our show on, maybe several million in the tri-state area on what is called, I guess, real TV, and 70 million on cable TV, over what they tell me is 2,500 cable systems. So, Walter, you're talking to a lot of people, more than you could reach at one banquet. How would you set the scene for Mr. Al Alberts?
Well, I don't know if we have enough time, but I'll just sort of condense it. I would say the lead singer of perhaps not only the most exciting vocal group of the early 50s to the middle 50s, but the first vocal group to actually do choreography, Joe. The first group that not only excited you vocally, but they had movements on stage that brought the house down. And they choreographed all of their up-tempo songs. And this gentleman here with his expressive hands just made a name for himself, and many of the groups that followed in their footsteps, like the Four Coins and the Chuckles, all had that shuffle rhythm. So
and the hubcaps and the nosebleeds and the cufflinks.
But
Mr.
the
Alberts,
shuffle rhythm came from what these gentlemen
Mr.
did.
Alberts, how have you been? And let's...
Listen, after those 2 introductions, I think I'm going to quit right here, Joe. I'm ahead of the game.
Are you a native Philadelphian?
Yes, South Philly.
Did you go to Temple University?
Mm-hmm.
They ready for this?
Yes.
And you'll vouch for this. We have not rehearsed this, right?
No.
When Bill Cosby was on my program, he was my anchor man many times, but he once told me that one of his inspirations in show business was a fellow Temple alumnus or alumni named Al Alberts. Were you a little bit aware of that, at least that he went to Temple University?
Well, he's one of our most successful graduates.
Right.
But I wasn't aware that he was aware of my part of Temple University. I'm very flattered to hear that.
Well, who didn't? Who growing up, people like Bill Cosby couldn't have known the Four Aces?
He was in class with Mario Lanza, if
really?
I recall.
Well, when you asked where I was from, and I said South Philly, Joe.
Right.
In our class in South Philadelphia High at that point, we had Mario Lanza, Al Martino, Buddy Greco, Frank Guerra, Metropolitan Opera, and the list just goes on and on and on.
And guess what? Not one of them was able to make the Glee Club, right? The teacher said, you're all monotones, all listeners, you're never going to amount to anything in singing,
Well,
right?
I didn't make the Glee Club.
Really?
I did have parts in the school plays.
And Joy Abbott, George Abbott's wife, went to school with you also. Joy Abbott. George Abbott,
yeah.
who's 100 and some years old.
Yeah.
His wife sent me a letter saying she's got to watch the show.
Would you say, Mr. Alberts, that Mr. Gollender knows more about your life than you know about your life?
Absolutely. If I want to know where I was in 1965 on August whatever, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I just call Walt. Because I don't have... He brought in some pictures. I don't know where half of them were taken.
What is new? What is up? I know that Al Alberts, as a favor to me, is going to do a little reminiscing today, but Al says to me, Joe, I don't care to listen to the reminiscent. I care to project into the future. But before we reminisce, a little bit on what is new and newsy and stirring and current in the life of you.
Well, our main forte, in addition to traveling occasionally with the original Four Aces, Joe,
right.
We're still doing concerts, but my main premise right now is a television show that we have on the local ABC station in Philadelphia, Channel 6. And we are just celebrating the beginning of our 20th year with a show called Al Alberts Showcase. Created the whole thing was Tell Me Why. We did have one before that, which was It's No Sin, but it was still not the identifying sound that we came up with finally with Tell Me Why and Garden in the Rain. And the others that are constantly requested, Joe, are like Three Coins in the Fountain, Stranger in Paradise, Heart of My Heart, Heart and Soul, and Mr. Sandman, incidentally.
Sandman.
Our good friend, the producer of Back to the Future, just put our recording of Mr. Sandman into that movie. And we were kind of happy to hear about that.
Any estimates, Walt, of the total number of records sold through the years? Let's say by the Four Aces and by Al Alberts as a single, the combined...
As of 11 o'clock this morning when I called our accountant, 37 million. But that was as of 11 o'clock.
37 million what?
Records sold, including albums. Or am I not up to date on that?
Now, when you talk about records sold, we have gone over 100 million.
That I read in...
Now, how didn't you know that?
Well, I told you, as of 11 o'clock, you know how...
That I read in the lifestyle section. It says a pleasant or poetic way to get somewhere. And it's a story about Alberts and the group 3 decades later, and it says that they have sold over 100 million.
I'm correcting my notes right now.
Al, what could happen in your incredibly productive